And so there is a lot of like therapy, I think, for both myself and my daughter in this process. Um, she's 7 years old, and the journey that the way this started was in LA. So I met her father when I was in my early 30s and he was in his mid 20s. And I and you know, initially there was no desire to have a relationship with this person. I was going through a divorce. I was very broken. My ex-husband had kicked me in the vagina and had been to the hospital, and I really saw that my life was, you know, if I kept in that relationship, I would have lost my life. I saw that when I sustained that kick, and I realized that if I didn't leave, that things would really come to a head, you know, and not in a good way. And the way that that kick even transpired, like it happened in front of our kids, and they thought I was dying. I thought I was definitely dying. I lost a lot of blood, and and had to like get medical intervention, right? And for 6 weeks I couldn't walk or do anything properly. I was just like bedridden. Anyway, so I really had to leave that relationship, and never thought I would have ended up in a position of like as a divorcee. Never didn't even cross my mind. Thought naively that, you know, if I gave all that I had to give, if I did all I had to do, you know, as a very traditional minded person, going into marriage, meaning to say I was, you know, a firm believer in the man being the head of the household, directing his wife. However, now that I look back, I should have seen certain signs. One being when I spoke of my abuse, because my husband had already met the pastor who abused us. He had met this person, and his first reaction was to laugh. You know, when I spoke about my abuse, when I divulged, when I disclosed that this person had sexually assaulted me in my youth, he laughed. That was his very first reaction, and that was a red flag of many, that I should have paid more attention to. However, on the path of like lessons learned, and you know, and moving on and moving forward, I I am sad to say I didn't, you know, quite the bells didn't go off, you know, then. But anyway, he had laughed, and so that relationship came to an end about 6 years into our marriage. And so when I met this person, my daughter's dad, I was very much still a very broken person. I was, you know, I was in um Florida at the time, and I was really just beside myself. I could barely like take care of myself. I was constantly thinking of my kids and what this guy was doing to me and demanding that I do. He wanted me to give him full custody, even though I had been a very committed mother, and to the point where like he was hands off with the kids, and I was doing everything. And even though we were in a, you know, even though we had one of those nuclear families, it couldn't have been further from the truth. You know, here was I like doing all the work. You know, I could easily, I was wearing all the hats. I could easily have been, you know, father to my kids too. I was being, I just, you know, didn't have all the devices and the, you know, tools, but I was definitely a father in the sense that I was being both the corrector, the homemaker, you know, the facilitator, the person who did homework with the kids, the person who played with the kids, you know, and he would just like come in ever so often, you know, infrequently, you know, when he had time. Otherwise, he just lived on his phone and in his own world. So yeah, so even though we had um the sort of nuclear social family unit, we it was very much like a kind of like, you know, like a vehicle with just like on, you know, on relying heavily on like more heavily on one of its wheels. And yeah, it was something where like I was bearing up the family in so many ways, like by myself. Um, Never thought I would have divorced. It's really like, it really, what I was blindsided by a lot of the things that were just so obviously, you know, detailing or suggesting the end and the death of something. And I was just like, whoa, like, oh my gosh, this is not gonna end well. Especially the kick, it was just like, okay, um, there's no way this is gonna end well. And even he was like crying the moment, maybe for himself. The police came, the neighbors had called the police, and he, thought he was going to jail, and I thought I was dying. And so I said, oh, I can't die, and the father of my kids go to jail. Who's going to take care of my kids? And I was thinking this as I was like crumpled on the floor and just like thinking, I'm gonna die. I was thinking, who's going to take care of the kids? And I was thinking, I can't send this guy to jail. So I would just like not, acknowledge that he did anything. And I was really surprised when the police came anyway, because I didn't call them, and I didn't hear anything besides the kick. I was just like, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna die, because the pain was so excruciating and the blood was everywhere. It was like everywhere. And so yeah, it turned out I very much lived. I met my daughter's father in Los Angeles, and detailed a lot of these things to him. Just like, I was so tired of like being discovering that people, unscrupulous people, I was just so tired of like encountering people who would hurt me despite, like relaying all this information about myself. I thought that was enough to say, okay, this is what I've been through. I'm a good person. I just want, like, you're trying to communicate, like, I'm a good person. Please don't hurt me. And then a person can just like, fool you. So yeah, this is a crazy thing. He was paying so much attention to what I was saying and like nodding, and all the cues were there, the body language, the eye contact. It was just like, yeah, you can talk to me, like, you can talk to me. I'm here for you. And I assumed this to be true. I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And I thought, okay, I can trust this guy. I can trust him. Foolishly, gullibly, very impressionable still, even at 30. And then yeah, so we at the very beginning, initially at the very beginning of our relationship, it was all, for me, it was just like a friend. We were friends, and I was talking to him a lot about like my problems. It was kind of like therapy. And he you know just seemed very attentive. And then one day someone was asking one of the girls from Taiwan. We were at this hostel, and one of the girls from Taiwan was like, um are you guys like romantically linked? Like, are you romantically interested? And I said, no, 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 we're just friends. Like, we just talk all the time. Like, it's just, it's cute, it's nice, it's entertain, it's like, there's nothing else to do, right? So after work was done, so it's like, okay, so I'll just talk to this guy until I can get out of this place, and go back to Florida. And I remember after it being suggested to me that there was something more, that I kind of like started having these thoughts. Like, it was kind of like they were pushed on me, but then I began to have these same thoughts and go, why is this person talking to me? And what's that light in their eyes when I talk to them? Like, what is that? But I didn't want to read too much. I'm not an egoistic person. Well, everybody has some ego, and is to a degree a narcissist, but I wasn't overly, preoccupied with myself, or like, thinking that, oh, he was, what's this? Like, I really didn't assume anything about his feelings, and until it was like, as I said, suggested to me. And then and it came from everywhere. It wasn't the Taiwanese, it was like from so many places. People were like, you like each other, ha, we know, we're on to you guys. And I was like, no, no, really, we're just friends. But I do have a friend that said once that all your relationships, especially, even your friendships, in particular your friendships, are potential relationships. And I really was like, absolutely not. I was like, I am affronted by you saying that, because it means you're trying to insinuate all my friends like me in a sexual way, and that is absolutely not the case. And she said, oh yeah? Okay, try it. Go ask your friends, if they wouldn't shag you, And I said, No, no, they would not. Absolutely not. I can swear for them. No way. They just see me as their sister and they've got my back, blah, blah, blah. And this just niggled at me until one day I said, okay, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask my bona fide friend, hey, you just see me for me, right? I'm just your sister, right? So I go and I ask my friend Rio, and he says, no, I'd take a, I'd do it. I'd totally sleep with you. And I was horrified. I was like, what? And what that did for me was really deflating in that I was thinking that, he saw me for my worth, like he saw me as like, this platonic friend and, this person with just like for who I was, like there was nothing sexual and no, no, no. And I asked all my male friends and all of them said the same thing. And I was just like, wow. And I think the logic behind what my friend was trying to spin was that at the very base of any friendship, you have set principles and values, morals, like there are certain things that are just like baseline for all your relationships. Things like trust, honor, respect. I mean, it may vary. Honesty, integrity, honesty, integrity slash honesty. Um, just there's some things that everybody looks forward toward, no matter if you're friends or a notch higher or several notches higher, married, or they're just certain baseline, requirements. And I was thinking, okay, okay. Um, and then I said, I have to, I guess, forgive my friends or like let them go because I guess this thing is true, right? And I was also interrogating myself and saying, is there something that I feel for these people? Like, could it be that I really would like, I could embark on relationships with all of them. So there was that in the background of my mind, the fact that I was friends with this guy, but could it be that, you know, behind lurking, in all of this were some kind of like, feelings, dare I say. And yeah, and so I forgot how it went. I forgot how it went. I may have asked him, or it could be that I just yeah, because it's very hard for me to just like start inventing a reason to like someone, like if either it's there or it's not there for me. And I don't like necessarily build, but this was really weird because I guess, I was indicted in the sense that it was there, and because people said it to me, it kind of like the flame was like the match was struck, and it kind of set flame to this thing that was already there, this connection that was already there, and that I was just like ignoring or not oblivious to, not oblivious to, that I was slash not that I was not slash that I was oblivious to. So I somehow, I don't remember how, we began dating. We began like seeing each other. Like we began, I don't know, being more honest with our feelings, or like experimenting. I don't know. I don't know exactly how it played out, but I do recall him saying to me initially, "This is just for the here and now," and the exact word he used was, "This is just LA." And at the time I didn't know what he meant. He said, "This is just LA." What is he talking about? What is he talking about? Like no one had ever said this to me. This is just like here, just now. And I was really affronted when it suddenly hit me what he meant. I was just like, oh my God, he means to say that. Is he trying to say he's embarrassed of me? Is he trying to say that if it's not for like this, like outside of here, like he wouldn't show me to anybody he knows, or he wouldn't like, like show me off, or like, like is this like secret clandestine, like hush hush, uh wrong, like like what's he trying to insinuate here? And I was affronted. I was just like, no, but at the same time I was like kind of glad. I was like, okay, great, because I didn't trust men. And after what happened to me with my ex-husband and the fact that the reality of like having a divorce, I was just like, absolutely not, I can't trust men. So I was just like, okay, I guess that's okay, because it means that I don't have to like have any expectations about you, so I was like, oh, okay. So it was like one of those left-handed, I guess, gestures, and that it didn't quite feel right, but at the same time I was like, well, at the same time I don't mind this, given what had happened to me. So um I started this relationship with this young man, and got called a cougar by the guy in charge, and some other people who are just like absolutely like constantly, just at our relationship, just at it, saying snide, making snide comments, saying, little rude things, and just making me very uncomfortable, because I felt like I was being very honest, and then other people were just like coming with their, like, with their opinions that really, like, they weren't doing anything for us. Like, what do you mean you have an opinion on this? Like, um and so, but I just like, he had a beard at the time, and he looked older than when, like, he took it off. And so I was like, and because his voice is deep, I thought, oh, like, he was white, like they tend to look older. Um, and I was just like, oh, I was okay. I didn't feel any weird way. And then, but in his mannerisms and his behavior, he was really acting young. And I remember this like being very irksome for me, because I already had been married. I had been, exposed to nice things. And, I had a bar, and he was listening to rap, and I was more of a classics girl. And I was just thinking, some things were, rubbing against, who I felt I was, versus like who I could see myself being with. And I was even trying to like call him up for those things, and I was saying things like, oh, I don't like that you listen to this rap music, it's like all nonsense anyway. And then he was like explaining to me what the rappers were saying, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, and that's kind of deep. And so I began to, I didn't critically appreciate rap. So I didn't look at it as something I could appreciate in a critical sense. Like, I couldn't like express appreciation for it. I loathed it that much, but I saw why some people like it. I was, okay, so that's cool. But I was also like very true to myself in that, I knew what I liked intrinsically, and I was not going to like just be, oh, I love rap now because you do. So we had some very different ways about like feeling, regarding life. And this is typically the kind of person I end up with. And there's some nuance around the word end up with, right? Like, oh my God, there's so much to unpack there. But I ended up with, as usual, somebody who was very opposite me, right? So I was very artistic and very like free flowing and very, um come what may. And even, and to demonstrate this, even when I met him, I was with some girls who were like really rough. They were like rough girls. They said, oh, we're going to LA to go dance. And I was so stupid. I thought, oh, they're gonna dance, how lovely. What theater are you performing at? And they were like strippers, like, we're gonna dance. And and I remember like even like joining them on stage once, and just like having a lot of fun. And I was just thinking, oh, there's so much more to life. But a lot of it was me running away. It was like running away from my ex-husband and from a life I knew, and just thinking, I got it so wrong. How could I have gotten it so wrong? I must do something very different to not let this repeat again. I must do something very different. I can't fall for the same person twice. I have to, like, change what it is I was doing. And so I went down this very like unusual path of like, you know, being with these strippers through LA, like, just letting them lead me wherever, and watching them just like be. And it was just such a different world, and I felt so lost and alone and so sad, so sad. And prior to that, I was in a hotel after I was competing in this one of the dance competitions I entered myself into.